Hey fellow chess learners, welcome to our channel Pawnception. Today we're going to talk about one of the finest chess matches that has ever played. February 1983, in the picture-perfect Spanish city of Linares, where the chess world has gathered for what would become known as the Wimbledon of chess, a tournament featuring some of the strongest players on earth. Among them sits a 31-year-old world champion named Anatoly Karpov, preparing to demonstrate why he is called the boa constrictor of chess. Today's story is about more than just a chess game. It's about one of the most brilliant examples of positional strangulation ever witnessed on a chessboard. The game between Karpov, playing white, and Hungarian Grandmaster Sax, playing black, has been called one of the greatest chess games of all time. But why? What makes this particular battle so special? Karpov transformed what began as a sharp, tactical Sicilian defense into a positional masterpiece. He didn't rely on flashy sacrifices or brilliant combinations. Instead, he slowly, methodically squeezed the life out of black's position. Karpov begins with e4, the king's pawn opening. This move is like opening the door to a grand hall. It immediately claims central space, frees both the queen and the bishop, and signals intention to take control of the center right from the start. For Karpov, who was known for his strategic precision, this was not just a routine move. It was the declaration of his style, to dominate quietly but firmly. Gyula Sax replies with c5, the Sicilian defense. If e4 by white was an invitation to build a castle in the center, black c5 is like stationing an army on the flank, saying, I will not fight you head on, but I will counterattack from the side. The Sicilian is one of the sharpest and most combative replies to 1e4. Chosen by players who want to fight rather than a quiet defensive game. Karpov develops his knight with nf3. This move is like placing a guard in the doorway of the castle in one step. He both defends the central pawn and e4 and prepares to leap deeper into the battlefield. For beginners, this is a classic principle: develop your knights early and point them towards the center. Karpov follows theory with effortless grace, keeping the game flexible while eyeing opportunities for future expansion with d4. Sax responds with e6. This is like quietly building a wall behind the lines. By advancing the pawn to e6, black prepares to bring the dark squared bishop out if needed and supports a possible d5 thrust later. Unlike the fiery d6 or c6, this move is flexible and solid, showing Sax's intention to first reinforce his camp before charging ahead. It's a patient, measured choice. He is saying, I will let you take the center, but I will strike at it when the time is right. Karpov pushes d4, striking straight at the center. With two pawns side by side, white claims full control of the battlefield's heart. Karpov isn't just gaining space, he is telling Sax, this is my territory, your Sicilian counterplay will have to earn its oxygen. This shows one of the oldest truths in chess: dominate the center and you dictate the pace of the game. This is black saying, if you want the center, you will have to fight for it. By trading his c-pawn for white pawn, Sax exchanges a wing pawn for a central pawn, a common Sicilian theme. It's a bit like luring the opponent into overextending, weakening their structure while planning counterplay later. Strategically, Sax knows this capture opens up lines and prepares to challenge the knight that will soon recapture on d4. Karpov smoothly plays nxt4, recapturing the pawn. This knight leap is like a commander stepping into the very heart of the battlefield. Not only does Karpov reclaim his lost pawn, but now the knight sits proudly in the center, exerting influence in every direction. This is a perfect example of efficiency. Recapture material and develop a piece at the same time. Karpov keeps harmony, while Sax must now decide how to challenge this proud intruder. Sax plays nf6, a natural developing move with bite. This knight jumps forward like a scout harassing white position, immediately putting pressure on Karpov's e4 pawn. At the same time, it develops closer to the center and clears space for black's king's side pieces to join the game. Strategically, Sax is making Karpov answer the question, will you guard your pawn or push forward with momentum? Push forward with while white may have central space, black's pieces are ready to challenge every inch of it. Karpov calmly develops with nc3. This is like sending a second knight to stand guard at the gates of the central fortress. The move not only supports the d4 knight, but also strengthens the e4 pawn, which Sax's knight was eyeing moments ago. Strategically, it adds balance. White knights now form a powerful duo, harmonizing in the middle and preparing for future expansion. For Karpov, this is not aggression yet, it's patience, quiet reinforcement before the clash erupts. Sax anchors his structure. The d6 pawn supports e5, a future thrust, and solidifies black's heart. This is the classical Sicilian backbone, solid, ready to counterstrike. Karpov shocks the board with g4. This is no quiet, positional move, it's a thunderclap. Instead of slowly developing, Karpov hurls his pawn forward, chasing Sax's knight and announcing his intentions to attack on the king's side. It's as though Karpov has lit a torch and thrown it into the dark forest. He is creating chaos early, daring Sax to fight on dangerous ground. For beginners, this is unusual. You rarely push the g-pawn so far this early, but here it serves a double purpose. It questions the knight on f6 and gains massive space for a future pawn storm, preparing h4, h5. It shows Karpov isn't just aiming for control, he is sharpening his sword for battle. Sax replies with h6, a cautious but necessary move. It's as if he raises a small shield to slow down the advancing white pawn. By pushing his h-pawn, Sax prevents white from easily playing g5 to kick away the knight on f6. At the same time, though, this creates tiny cracks around his own king's side, like moving a brick in the protective wall of a fortress. For Karpov, this is exactly what he wants, weaknesses he can target later. Sax has defended against the immediate threat, but in doing so, he has committed his pawns, and Karpov now sees a battlefield starting to open. Karpov surprises again with rg1. Instead of calmly developing his king side pieces, he swings his rook out to the g-file, even before moving his king to safety. This is like placing an artillery cannon on the front line long before the fortress has been secured. The rook stares directly at black's king's side, ready to support the pawns that will storm forward. For most beginners, bringing out the rook so early feels unnatural. It usually stays home until the center is cleared. But Karpov sees farther. By connecting his rook to the pawn storm, he turns the king's side into a battlefield, where each pawn push will carry heavy firepower behind it. Sax must now wonder, is Karpov really preparing such a deep king's side attack this early? Sax answers with b7, quietly developing his bishop. This is a solid defensive move, almost like bringing an experienced defender to the gates as the enemy approaches. The bishop clears the back rank, prepares for castling, and reinforces the knight on f6, all very logical and calm. But there is a deeper tension here. While Sax is playing normal development moves, Karpov is already breaking all conventions with pawn storms and early rook lifts. It's a clash of philosophies. Sax aims for stability and safety, while Karpov sharpens his blade for attack. By placing his bishop here, Sax is essentially saying, I will castle, get solid, and then we will see if your aggression was premature. Karpov plays b3, a move that blends boldness with calm development. It's like after pulling out his sword with g4 and rg1. He now takes a breath and sets a shield in the middle of the battlefield. The bishop anchors the center, guarding the key squares d4 and c5, while also eyeing black's queen side for future expansion. Importantly, this bishop supports the coming pawn pushes on the king side, ensuring that Karpov's attack has a strong backbone. For beginners, this shows a golden idea. Even in aggressive positions, you must not forget development. Pieces must work together. Karpov is attacking, yes, but he is also making sure every piece is part of the orchestra. Sax develops with nc6, bringing another piece into the fight. This knight leap is like sending a cavalry unit forward to challenge the white forces holding the center. From c6, the knight eyes both d4 and d5, critical squares where battles often erupt in the Sicilian. It also helps black's coordination, since now both knights are aimed at the heart of the board. Strategically, Sax is following the textbook. When your opponent storms the flanks, counter in the center. This knight says, I won't sit back and watch your pawns march, I will fight for space in the middle. Yet, Karpov's setup still looks more dangerous. His rook, pawns, and bishop are already brewing trouble on the king's side. Karpov slides his queen forward with QE2. At first glance, it looks quiet, just tucking the queen behind her pawns. But like a general stepping onto a balcony, the queen now oversees both flanks. She supports the e4 pawn, aims indirectly at black's king's side, and prepares to connect with the bishop on e3 for future tactical ideas. She also lays the groundwork for king side or queen side castling. Karpov keeps Sax guessing where his king will ultimately find shelter. This move reflects Karpov's style perfectly, not rushing the attack, but polishing every piece row. The queen is both defender and attacker, patiently waiting for the right opening to strike. Sax answers with bd7, a steady and defensive choice. The bishop steps out like a watchman on patrol, connecting black's rooks and reinforcing the knight on c6. It also clears the back rank so that black can castle soon if needed. At the same time, it quietly eyes the square c6, preparing for potential exchanges, and keeps coordination between the pieces tight. But here lies the contrast. While Sax is shoring up his camp, Karpov's forces are already geared up for springing forward. It's the clash of solidity versus initiative, Sax is trying to say. Hold on, let me finish building my walls. But Karpov is preparing to batter them down before they are fully up. Karpov advances with h4, hurling yet another pawn into the fire. This is not a cautious move, it's a wardroom. The pawn storms further up the king's side, threatening to push h5 and harass Black's knight and defenses. For Karpov, each pawn pushes like tightening the noose, first g4, then h4, and soon the entire king's side will be aflame. This is a brilliant lesson. Attacking is not just about one piece rushing forward, it's about pawns paving the road, you supported by the heavy artillery behind. Here, Karpov's rook already sits on g1, ready to blast open fires if Sax dares to castle king's side. The message is clear, she is not giving Sax even a moment's peace. Sax boldly captures on nxt4. This knight capture is like a counterattack right in the heart of Karpov's stronghold. Sax knows he can't just sit and defend. He must disrupt white mounting king's side assault by challenging the critical central knight on d4. By exchanging knights, he aims to weaken white control and open lines for his own pieces in the center and queen side. It's a calculated risk. Sax must act before Karpov's pawns become unstoppable. For beginners, this is a great example of timing in chess. Sometimes, counterattack is the best defense. Rather than passively watching the storm approach, Sax chooses to meet it head-on. Karpov calmly plays bxd4, retaking the knight with his bishop. This smooth recapture places the bishop firmly in the heart of the battlefield, maintaining white control of central squares and coordinating well with his knights and queen. It's like replacing a fallen commander with a skilled general who can quickly adapt and respond to threats across the battlefield. Strategically, Karpov preserves the balance of power and keeps his pieces active, ensuring his kingside attack is supported by a solid middle. This move exemplifies precise, calm control even in the face of Sax's bold countermeasures. Sax strikes back with e5, a dynamic pawn push challenging Karpov's bishop. This move is like sending an arrow flying into the center. Black aims to disrupt white piece placement and open lines for his own pieces to activate. By attacking the bishop on d4, Sax hopes to gain space and initiative, trying to wrest control of this center away from Karpov's grasp. At the same time, this pawn advance slightly loosens Black's own pawn structure, signaling that Sax is ready to accept risk for the sake of active play. For beginners, this move teaches the delicate balance between aggression and positional safety. Karpov retreats his bishop with b3, repositioning it to safety while maintaining central control. This move is like a skilled commander withdrawing to a fortified position, avoiding enemy fire but remaining ready to support the attacking forces. By moving back to e3, the bishop stays on an important diagonal, guarding critical squares and preparing to support future attacks or defenses. This cautious repositioning keeps Karpov's coordination intact, while responding flexibly to Sax's pressure. For beginners, this shows how defense and attack must blend. Sometimes a strategic retreat is the smartest push forward. Sax develops his bishop to bc6, aiming to challenge white center and add pressure. This is like sending a seasoned warrior to occupy a key strategic outpost. From c6, Black's bishop eyes the critical central squares and supports potential breaks or pawn pushes on the queen side. It also coaxes white pieces to make difficult decisions, forcing Karpov to account for threats from multiple angles. This move deepens the tension. Sax balances defense with pressure, refusing to yield territory while seeking active counterplay. Karpov slides his queen to d3, a strong and purposeful centralizing move. This is like positioning the command center where all lines of communication come together. The queen supports the bishop on e3 and watches over key central and kingside squares, ready to join the fray wherever needed. The move also prepares for possible attacks on the king side, coordinating with white advancing pawns and rooks. For beginners, this shows the importance of placing the queen where she can both defend and strike. Perfect balance is key before launching a full-scale assault. Sax moves his queen to qa5, launching a bold probe into white queen's side. This move is like sending a spy deep into enemy territory. From qa5, the queen eyes white knight at c3 and indirectly pressures the center and the vulnerable late pawn. It forces Karpov to be cautious. Sax is signaling he is not just defending but hunting for weaknesses to exploit. It raises the stakes in this battle, showing Sax's willingness to create complications despite Karpov's looming king-side attack. Karpov castles queenside, boldly throwing his king to the opposite flank of his kingside pawn storm. Sax strikes like lightning. His knight dives onto e4, snapping up a pawn. It's a bold decision, material over safety. But greed in chess is dangerous. The knight stands in enemy territory, and Karpov is not the kind to forgive trespassers. Karpov responds with nxc4, calmly recapturing the knight. This move is like steadying the ranks after an explosion. Karpov takes back material cleanly, maintains his central presence. Sax pushes d5, aggressively challenging white as center and attacking the knight. This move is like swinging a battering ram at the fortress walls. With d5, Sax tries to open lines and gain space, forcing white bishop and knights to rethink their stronghold. It's a bold, direct strike aimed at breaking Karpov's control and creating counter chances in the middle of the board. d5 is a textbook Sicilian counterpunch, a thematic move striking at white center to balance the scales between attack and defense. Karpov plays qb3, a subtle but powerful move. This queen move is like a sniper positioning herself to pick off targets at range. Karpov's queen placement perfectly balances defense and offense, continuing to tighten the screws on Sax's position. Sax calmly recaptures with dxc4, opening the d-file. This is like pulling back a piece to draw the enemy into a trap. By taking back on e4, Black opens the d-file for his rook and keeps the center fluid, hoping to activate his heavy pieces quickly. Though it opens lines for white as well, this move keeps the tension active and forces Karpov to decide how best to deploy his forces. Karpov develops with bc4, bringing his bishop into an active attacking position. This move is like deploying an archer with a clear line of sight to the enemy esky squares. The bishop eyes the vulnerable f7 square, a classic weak spot in Black's camp, and adds pressure along the diagonal. It also supports the queen on b3 and continues to improve white piece coordination for the upcoming attack. This is a textbook example of piece activity. Develop pieces where they control important lines and create threats, not just defend passively. Sax plays rf8, mobilizing his rook for defense. This move is like reinforcing the walls around a vulnerable fortress gate. The rook guards the critical f7 square, which is often an Achilles heel in many openings, and prepares to repel white growing assault. By activating the rook, Sax aims to shore up his defenses while keeping options open for counterplay. Sax's response shows his awareness that his king's position is under threat, and he is trying to prepare for the battle that's about to heat up. Karpov boldly invades with rd5, placing his rook deep into Black's camp. This move is like sending a special forces unit behind enemy lines, disrupting Black's defenses from within. The rook attacks multiple targets, cuts off Black's pieces, and threatens to open lines vital for the attack. It also forces Sax into difficult choices, whether to exchange pieces or risk material loss. It's a lesson in seizing the initiative and making aggressive, active moves that hamper your opponent's coordination. Sax exchanges with bxt5, capturing the invader. By trading off the rook, Sax tries to reduce white active pressure and simplify the position. It's like clearing out the special forces to stabilize the crumbling defense. But this comes at a cost, handing over the initiative and opening lines for white other pieces. For Sax, it's a tough call. Either allow Karpov's rook to wreak havoc or accept simplified but potentially deteriorating positions. Karpov swiftly recaptures with bxt5, maintaining his grip on the center and pressure on Black. This move is like replacing the fallen commando with a fresh, equally capable operative. Sax counters with rd8, bringing his rook to contest the open d-file. This is like moving reinforcements to the front lines to hold a crucial choke point. The rook challenges white bishop on d5 and balances control over the d-file. Black is striving to prevent white from increasing his domination there. Karpov retreats his bishop to bc4, controlling key squares and keeping pressure high. It also supports white central and kingside forces, maintaining their coordination and readiness to strike. This repositioning balances offense and defense, ensuring white army stays compact yet threatening. Black brings the bishop to b4, an active square that puts pressure on white queen's side and probes weaknesses. Picture it like an outpost on a ridge, small, exposed, but very noisy, forcing the opponent to reply. Your Sax aims to create counterplay on the queen side, pin or harass anything that could jump to c3, and prepare b5 later to chase white forces. Karpov braces the center. The c-pawn steps forward, supporting the d4 square and giving his light-squared bishop room to breathe. It is like shoring up the foundation of a fortress before the battering rams arrive. Sax answers with venom. His b-pawn storms down the board, a wing pawn ready to open lines against Karpov's queenside castle king. This is the duel in its purest form. Attack on opposite flanks, each player racing to break through first. Karpov retreats his bishop calmly, stepping back to e2. It's not cowardice, but flexibility. From here, the bishop is safe from tactics and will soon aim at weak spots in Black's camp. Sometimes the greatest warriors step back, only to strike harder later. Sax develops with harmony. His dark squared bishop comes alive on d6, pointing directly at white king's side. One can almost feel the tension, bishops staring at opposite flanks, preparing for sacrifices, daggers drawn. Karpov's queen strikes boldly into the heart of the board. She plants herself on d5, eyeing weaknesses, pinning Sax's attention. It's a queen in the enemy camp, part scout, part executioner. Sax, unwilling to be pinned down, shifts his king. k7 looks strange, walking into the open, but it connects his rooks and sidesteps immediate threats. Like a king abandoning his throne to fight in the mud, it's risky, but sometimes necessary. Karpov immediately punishes the exposed monarch. His bishop lunges to c5, slicing across the diagonal, fixing Sax king in the spotlight. The board becomes a theater, and Sax monarch is the unwilling lead actor. Sax has no choice. He cuts down the intruding bishop, trading a piece for survival. But as in any battle, removing one enemy often invites another to take its place. And here comes the queen swooping in with a check. White queen is relentless, forcing the black king deeper into danger. Every check feels like another spotlight on Sax's exposed ruler. The king stumbles backward, now on d7. He is stranded in the middle of the board, a hunted figure without a safe square. Another blow. Karpov seizes the c5 pawn, winning material and tightening his grip. Every pawn captured is more rope around Sax's struggling king. Sax fights back with his queen, stepping to c7. It defends, it counters, it hopes to block Karpov's momentum. But it also betrays a truth. Black is on the back foot, reacting instead of dictating. Check again. Karpov's queen slides to f5, like a blade at the king's throat. Relentless pressure, refusing to let Sax breathe. Every tempo counts, and Karpov spends none of them idly. The king is pushed once more. From d7 to e7, he staggers under the repeated checks, a monarch forced into humiliating dance steps. There is no dignity here, only survival. Another slash. Karpov takes on e4, not only checking but also grabbing a central pawn. Its efficiency at its finest, attack and plunder in the same move. The board tilts heavily in Karpov's favor. Back again, Sax king trunches to d7, desperately clinging to life. But this is no safety, only a circle of doom. The king is running in place, and the net tightens. Once more, the queen checks on f5. Like waves crashing against a cliff, the blows keep coming, wearing down Sax's defenses. And again, the weary king shuffles to e7. This back and forth is not repetition without meaning. It's Karpov squeezing, milking every ounce of weakness before delivering the final storm. And here it comes. The rook finally joins the attack. re1 places the last executioner into position. A guillotine being wheeled into the square. Sax can feel it. His king is doomed, and the full weight of Karpov's army is closing in. Sax slides his rook to d6, attempting defense and trying to guard critical squares, maybe to redeploy on the 6th rank as a shield. It is a last-ditch reorganization. Trying to keep the center closed and hold off Karpov's pieces. Why this move? To shore up the center, block infiltration, and buy time for the king. But it feels reactive. Sax is defending an increasingly fragile position. Karpov sharpens the blade. The bishop slides to c4 with check, joining the queen and rook in the assault. The king, already exhausted from his endless stance, is pushed deeper into the fire. It's like the walls of a burning house closing in, no exit, only smoke and flame. The black king stumbles to d8. He is almost back where he started, but now with no fortress, no pawns, no safety. Just a lonely monarch, exposed to the full wrath of Karpov's army. Karpov doesn't rush. He picks off a pawn on b5 with his bishop. This isn't just material gain. It opens fresh lines, strips away defenders, and prepares for the final kill. The elegance is chilling. Karpov wins while tightening the noose. Sax pushes a pawn to a6. It's a small, almost desperate move, a gesture of defiance. But in truth, it's like throwing a pebble at a tidal wave. The storm is already here. Karpov calmly retreats his bishop to a4. Notice the pattern: attack, collect, retreat, but always with precision. From a4, the bishop still cuts into the battlefield while keeping itself safe. It's control, the mark of a master. Sax pushes the g-pawn, maybe to give his king some air. It's too little, too late. Like a man opening a window while the entire house burns. The king's lungs are already filled with smoke. Karpov's queen returns to f3, cool and commanding. From here, she eyes the entire board, coordinating with rook and bishop for the final blow. It's the queen as conductor, orchestrating the last movement of this tragic symphony. The king staggers again, now to c8. He is running in circles, but every square is poisoned. The end is close. The audience can feel it. Sax surely feels it too. And here comes the rook, slicing into the 7th rank like a guillotine blade. It's checkmate territory now. the rook ready to decapitate the last defenses. The coordination of Karpov's pieces is breathtaking, a painting in motion. Sax plays his last card, a desperate rook check on d1. It's a spy check, the cry of a doomed man hurling his sword one final time. But there is no salvation in it. Karpov casually accepts, taking the rook with his king. Even the monarch joins in Karpov's victory march. There is no fear anymore. Sax's army is broken. Sax grabs Karpov's rook with his queen, but it's hollow. The black queen is fighting alone, outnumbered, outplayed. A queen with no army is just a figure waiting to fall. Karpov's queen darts to a8 with check. She is merciless, her blade pressing directly at the enemy king's chest. The attack is now pure inevitability. The black king shuffles once more to c7. It's survival for one more move, but nothing more. Again, the queen checks, this time from a7. It's like the executioner circling the prisoner, offering no escape. The king is dragged further into the corner of the board. The king steps to d6, still clinging to life, but in truth, he is already in chains. And here it ends. The queen checks from b6. There is no escape, no block, no flight, no miracle. Sax resigns. The game is over. This was not a game of chaos. It was a game of inevitability. Karpov didn't need firework. He didn't need sacrifices. He played with control, suffocating, patient, merciless. Sax, a brave fighter, threw flames at the world champion. But Karpov was water, and water always finds its way. That is why this game is remembered as one of the greatest of all time, not for what was taken, but for how it was taken, slowly, beautifully, with the artistry of a man who understood that in chess, as in life, sometimes inevitability is the most terrifying weapon of all. Rewatch these moves, pause on the critical moments, and ask yourself, what would I have played here? If you enjoyed learning from this game, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let us know in the comments, which part of Karpov's play impressed you the most. Until next time, keep learning, keep playing, and keep falling in love with the art of chess.